There we go. All right, everybody. This is a morning edition of the Lone Wolf Show. I wanted to go ahead and go live here with a prestigious elder over in the United Kingdom. I know recently on Witchcraft TV and also the Lone Wolf Show, we've had a lot of prestigious elders within the United States. And although we do reach out to elders worldwide, like Tamara von Forsland and others, across the globe, we're reaching out to United Kingdom and Robin A.P. Clericus, who has been involved in the craft for, you said 40 years.
40 years.
40 years. That's a big number. That's a lifetime.
Yeah.
Myself, I think I lost count. After a while, I think I'm at like 22 or 23, following earth-based spirituality. But yeah, what's on your mind these days?
Right. Well, I'll just the AP in my name for a start is pronounced Ap.
Ap. Okay.
And it means son of. It's a Welsh prefix that means son of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's Robin Ap Clericus. It's just in basically I've been watching your program and I've been watching Witchcraft TV. I've seen so many elders come forward, but most of them have been your side of the pond, US, so I thought maybe it was time to get a perspective from the UK side. So I mean, I was sort of intrigued by watching you, and there's a lot of, I'd say there was one big difference between the craft now in the US and over here. And that is the emergence of so many churches on the US side.
Right.
I mean, we don't really have that, I mean, getting pagans together and witches together on this side of the pond. A friend of mine, Gary, has a lovely term. He said it's like herding cats, and so we do have very much, it's still sort of initiate, if you're going into the craft in a serious way, it's still very, very much sort of an initiation process. And the predominantly Alexandrian and Gardnerian, so that's and the sites on the UK that if people are seekers, often they'll be guided to the Alexandrian and Gardnerian seekers pages,
Right.
rather than anything else, but the sort of structural the structures such as sort of courses and churches doesn't really sort of there's not a lot over here.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you 100% with that. I think the fact that a coven of witches or a group of witches or organization of witches can be like a church, that I think that's something that happened in the 70s, I think, where it was people were looking for equal rights. And you're right. Witchcraft or the craft was never intended to be a church atmosphere, and it's almost flaky and fluffy at that point. Not to downgrade.
I agree totally. I think there is within. I mean, I'll have to go back to sort of my roots. Like when I first started with the craft. I mean, I think there was no internet. There was very few correspondence, and if you were a seeker, especially in places, rural places in the UK, you were having a hard job. And even after I was initiated, I was hitchhiking hundreds of miles to get training.
Yeah,
and then hitching back because I didn't have a car at the time, and so there was this real commitment that you had to do. Yeah. And I think that sort of search sometimes, that struggle to actually just proved how sincere you were. Yeah. So there was no question of if you've hitchhiked 200 miles to get to a Sabbath, there's no one going to question your dedication on that, you know. And I think somehow church, I think a lot of people in the UK don't like the term church, and they don't like the idea of that formalized religion that they're just getting away from. The past 50 years in the UK have seen a swing from well, in my lifetime, even when I was a kid, I think there was about 70% of the population were churchgoers to some extent.
Right.
And it switched from 70-30 to 70-30 the other way round. And it's probably less now. Yeah. So that Christianity as such and these formalized religions as such are dying a real death here. Yeah. And paganism and the craft is really on the rise, you know.
It is. It is. I feel like there's an abundance of seekers and people that are coming to the craft, and a lack of elders or people that are infused with the wisdom of the craft.
I think that's covered in the UK by the Gardnerian Seekers and Initiates pages, which are well worth a look at. And I think because I mean there are some Americans that are on the sites as well, and the Alexandrian Seekers and Initiates page as well. So people are seeking the craft. They've got those to go to, and the people who put the names up on these sites, you know, are verified. So every one of them is sort of their lineage is checked, you know, before they can sort of say, all right, we've got a coven here. Yeah. So there's no sort of ifs and buts about whether they are a legit coven or not. And I think that's a good thing to have. I think that's security, you know. I mean, years ago it didn't matter because you only had the core sort of Gardnerian and Alexandrian covens. Not that there wasn't bad ones. And my experience, I had a couple of experiences in covens that were where I worked within the coven as an outsider that weren't sort of really quite dodgy. But I think the internet, even though it has opened up the craft, has also opened up the craft for dodgy sites and dodgy people. You know, and I think that the Alexandrian and the Gardnerian Seekers site, at least they have people saying, yeah, they're okay, you know, so at least they're sort of vetted to a certain extent.
I think the social media sites that are, you know, on the social media, the Alexandrian, the Gardnerian seeker sites like you're talking about, I think those are just hubs for a vetting process where they can kind of evaluate who's got the passion or who they're interested in.
I think so, but the main function of them is that people who are seekers can go onto that site and say, I'm looking for a coven, I'm looking for initiation within this area, say the north of England. And then someone can say, these people here are bona fide Alexandrians, Gardnerians who are working in the area. Get in touch with them. You know, so I think that it's a double whammy, because you're never going to be. See, that's the problem with seekers, either in the UK or the States, is you're never going to be 100% guaranteed that you're going to be put in touch with the right person.
Right.
You know,
or people that you can actually,
or people that you can work with. But we've all done that. I mean, I remember years ago, after my first degree initiation, I was initiated Gardnerian and Alexandrian first degree. Now, my high priestess at the time, they went off to traveling to sort of Europe. and I sort of set out to find another high priest, to take me to my second and third. And initially I was offered my second and third by a Gardnerian coven, but I refused it because and one of your favorite sort of phrases is keep your highest ideals.
Yeah, from Doreen Valiente. Yeah.
Well, I looked at these people; they weren't my highest ideals.
Yeah, I just went through a similar phenomenon with my own path. Yeah.
So basically, I waited, and then an Alexandrian priestess that I knew of a friend came along, and she's the one that took me up to my second and third degree. So I was a third degree by the time I was 30 years old, 29, 30 years old. Right. And I was running covens in Wales then.
Sweet.
But I was lucky. I was very, very lucky because I've heard some horror stories. I've dealt with people who've come from covens that were really mistreated people, and took them and sort of said, no, it's not all like this. This is how it can be, Right. So I think you have to be discerning, and I think there has to be a certain amount of common sense within there as well. Mm-hmm. If something triggers in your brain and says this doesn't ring true, then walk away from it. I initiated. Someone came to me for initiation after they'd sort of. This was in Wales years ago, and they'd been to this guy who wanted to initiate, and the first thing he said was, "Oh, you've got to have sex with me," and she just walked away from it. And I think, well, yeah, that's what you do. If someone says that, you walk.
Right.
But she didn't know, because she was a seeker and a young seeker. She didn't know any different. But if something rings a bell in your head, walk away from it. You can always go back later, right? If you jump in both feet, there's no going back. So my advice, actually, and that's it, is to question where they're from, question what roots they're from, what tradition they're from, question why they work like that, why they work ritual like that. Yeah. That's the one thing for any seekers now, is to ask, and don't stop asking. And if that person tells you to stop asking questions, walk away.
Mm-hmm. We have this thing over the United States. So I don't know if it comes from Europe or not, but it's like thrice ask. Like if a seeker goes to a priestess or priest and says, "Look, I want to be trained," or how do I, sit into your Sabbats, Isbats, or this and that. They always have this unwritten rule where you have to ask 3 times.
Yeah, I had to ask 3 times.
Is that
I wasn't told. And I wasn't told.
So that's the thing.
So yeah. What used to happen is that you would ask, and they would say, maybe. Yeah. And they would, and you'd go away. And then you'd be left thinking, what? Maybe. What's maybe? And so you'd go and ask again. Mm-hmm. And they'd say, well, I'm thinking about it. And then you'd go away again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the third time you went, they'd say, okay, yeah, that's it. But it was a great thing, if you think about it, because you had to go back. If you weren't serious about it, as soon as they said, well, maybe, you'd walk. So it was a way of getting the true seekers. The true seekers would be, and the ones that were fickle about it would just walk away.
Right.
Yeah. So yes, my initiation, I had to I asked 3 times on 3 separate occasions.
Right. Yeah. So in my situation is, I'm coming out of the penal institutions in prison. I found the craft in prison with recidivism coming in and out of the craft for many, many years. And I had alcohol issues, and it was with the help with some of the writings of Doreen Valiente with her charge with the highest ideals thing, that faction.
But actually, that's not Doreen's words.
Right. I understand this. There's a lot of skepticism of like.
No. Doreen did a great job. she put that charge together.
One sec.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Doreen put the charge together, but a lot of the sort of writings she'd got off Gardner. Gardner had made notes.
Right.
Yeah. And put these bits together. And that bit, keep pure your highest ideals, is actually from a Crowley quote.
Right. Didn't it have some kind of dealings with Aradia too? With the gospel, Charles Leland?
The first part of it is almost verbatim the Gospel of Aradia. Yeah. So basically what Doreen did, Gardner had written out this charge and Doreen wasn't very happy with it. Yeah, it didn't sort of ring true. It was very Crowleyan. And Gardner had said, right, I've got all these little bits written down. Here, see what you can make out of it. So she actually took all these bits and bobs from various sources and she structured them. So to say she wrote it is, well, she rewrote it or structured it or put it into a coherent passage, which is some doing, you know, and it doesn't, for me, it doesn't take anything away from the charge as it stands, you know, but it's these influences that sort of were, and I don't think that when she was handed these bits by Gerald, that she knew the sources. Yeah. But it's for me, it's a phenomenal piece. My priestesses, all the Alexandrian priestesses, used to have to learn it offhand. So they memorized the whole thing. So when you came to the invocation, when you invoked the goddess, if the goddess didn't actually come through and say your own words, that was the words that were said to you. And for me, it's the most beautiful passage ever, you know. And keep pure your highest ideals is one of my maxims. And that I have two things, right? I have keep pure your highest ideals and do what thou wilt. And that's the two that they're my two maxims that I live by. Because you don't need anything else. You don't need 10 commandments. You don't need 155 laws. You need a basic thing. And if you think about it, keep your highest ideals is a personal thing.
Right.
Yeah. To strive towards. And it harm none, do what thou will. Yeah. That is such a hard thing to live by. If you include that harm none to yourself as well.
Right.
That
no
is
smoking, no cigarettes, no coffee, no sugar.
Exactly.
You know, yeah.
That is a really hard, it gazumps your 10 commandments, you know, it blows them into outer space. One, and it harm none, do what you will. Yeah. Is actually absolutely brilliant, you know, and if everyone could live by that, we'd be a much happier people.
One of the things that I've noticed out here in the States, you know, coming from the penitentiary, is, well, first coming onto the pagan scene with music. You know, I like music and I express myself with music, and I think that's how I was able to network with a lot of people within the craft community in the States. And, you know, unfortunately, the people that were involved in pagan music are the ones that grabbed onto me, because I was a seeker, and, you know, I always just wanted initiation into, you know, a family, a traditional family. And all I've done for my entire life is study. And I studied in excess in the penitentiaries because there's nothing else to do. Like I was in confinement with where I would just spend all my time reading Crowley's works and Gardner's works and anything I could get my hands on. Very, very hungry. And when I come out to society, it's just my path just turned into pagan media. And here we are now with Witchcraft TV. But at the end of the day, I'm still uninitiated. And then you talk to some people with, you know, a broad knowledge base where it's just saying, well, initiation's nothing but acceptance into the tribe. You know,
No, I don't think so. Initiation can be a very, very profound experience.
Mm-hmm. I've heard.
Yeah. It's not for everyone.
Right.
I
Heard
don't
that.
believe it's for everyone.
Right.
My initiation was a total rebirth,
Mm-hmm.
but I think life gives you initiations. There's 3 levels, right?
Yes.
You
Right.
think about it as
Puberty.
the tarot.
Puberty.
Yeah. Right. If you have a look at the tarot, you have the fool, the magician, and the hermit.
Mm-hmm.
They are all the same person. And they are all the 3 initiations as well. The first initiation, the fool, the fool is a wrong term for it. The first initiation is the initiation of the goddess. Yeah. And you come to that initiation with love, and just love for the goddess is enough for that initiation to start getting a hold of you. Yeah. And lots of pagans, lots of witches will come to the craft because they love the goddess. They love the idea of the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As an all-encompassing being. The second initiation is the initiation of the magician. That is when you learn your craft. That is when you learn witchcraft. Yeah. So that is when you learn to work magic, learn the process of magic. And the third initiation is the hermit, or knowledge. So once you've acquired first 2, you come to knowledge, which is the acquisition of these 2. And then pretty much after you've got to this 3rd stage, you realize that you don't need to work magic. You don't need to sort of have these. Yeah. So these are phases in life as well. For any magical path, I think these initiations will happen. But saying that, if you're initiated, it's like, boom, the karma gets you. It's like forcing that karma, forcing that role upon you. Yeah. So you're stepping on that path, and through that initiation, you're saying, right, I'm ready for it. Bring it on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's the. Do I think initiation is that important on a magical path? No. Do I think it helps on a magical path? Yes, because I think any initiation and any training on a magical path will help you. Mm-hmm. Any magical system that you can learn will make you capable to understanding all other magical systems, because the core ideas are all the same. So learn one and learn it thoroughly, and you can accept and move on to other ones.
Mm-hmm. What do you think the warning signs are for? I mean, we know that the craft is a fertility cult, right?
Yeah.
And if we're truly a fertility cult, I mean, are there particular like pockets of covens that are just bad spots to be? They're just are they considered a cult at that time? Well, we are a fertility cult, so people can't really say, oh, well that group of witches are a cult, or they're like a cult. We are a cult.
We are a cult. Yeah. As far as if you look at the definition of cult, yes, we are a cult. But so what? That doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. So are there? Do you think there's baneful cults and better cults, or do you think it's just about like attracts like?
I think it's just individual sort of covens. Mm-hmm. If you think about the basic structure of the craft, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's to harm no one. Right. Yeah. So if you take that into consideration, anything that a high priest, high priestess does has to bear that in mind.
Yes.
And if they go against that, they're going against the craft.
Right. And I know from a lot of the Llewellynisms that was published in the 70s and 80s, they had and it harmed none was the original law, the law that could never be unchanged, and they always made all these extra like laws and stuff. But the only real law is the one that can never change, and it's been around for well, of course, the author said.
Actually, if you think about it, it says 8 words the wicked read fulfill, and it harm none, do what thou will.
Right.
A read is not a law. A read is an instruction,
right,
or a suggestion.
Right.
So actually, it isn't it isn't really a law.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And someone had once said that, yes, the read is a good sort of basis to go on,
mm-hmm.
but it's not a law.
Right.
Yeah. So if someone really, 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 really deserves it, curse them.
Right. Well, I mean, we're an earth-based spirituality, so within the confines of Mother Nature is not all loving and compassionate. Mother Nature can be very cool.
Exactly.
So I'm on the same page. On the same page there. So like attracts like if you're looking for a group or a family and it just doesn't work out. Well, actually, how about this? If you're involved in a family or a coven or a group organization or anything of that matter, and they are harming people and they're placing harm on people, wouldn't that shatter the ideology of what the craft is in modern day?
Yes, and you should walk away from it.
Right, and just silence it. Yeah,
there's a difference between there's a difference between putting up reflectiveness boundaries to reflect bad, to rebound bad magic that's coming towards you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference between that and being malevolent towards something. So doing bad magic just for the hell of bad magic.
Right.
Just because someone's boyfriend has pissed them off, to find a spell and to work magic against them is a no-no as far as I'm concerned. Because, I mean, tell the truth, it would be a lot easier to go around and punch them in the face than it would to actually work the magic. Because the magic you would need, the actual magic you would need, the knowledge you would need to work that kind of magic would probably be on that person. And if it wasn't beyond that person, they wouldn't even be thinking of it in the first place.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. I've heard that, like when you said people that might smite somebody or put bad magic on somebody and stuff like that. If that is the case, I've always believed that somebody that does that will never tell you.
Yeah,
they're doing.
But I always put my boundaries up. I mean, anywhere I go, I'm protected. I protect myself all the time because I never know what influences are going to, So my house is protected. I draw a circle around the car when I'm driving the car. You know, I do personal protection when I'm in company because you get vampirism, people sucking your energy. Yeah. But these are things that aren't. See, unfortunately, these are things. I mean, you Google on the internet and it's, this is a spell for this. This is a spell for that. This is a spell for that. But the really important magic, the magic of protecting yourself and growing yourself, is rarely talked about. You know, I mean, part of magic is knowing yourself and growing your own spirituality, and it does really, really cheese me off that there's so little of this that's talked about nowadays. You know, magic is about, and the craft is about self-fulfillment, as well as magic, as well as the exterior. You've got to look at the interior as well, and you look at the amount of spells that I need a spell for this, I need a spell for that. If you've got to ask for a spell, then you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because no matter if someone writes a few words down and says, "Yeah, here's your spell," and you sit, light a candle, and just give it some lip service, that's not magic. That's
Right.
just going through the motions of it. You
Right.
know, magic has 4 key principles, intent only being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's I think you were talking about the other day about the 7 hermetic principles.
Yeah, I was diving deep into the Hermetic principles.
Right. Yeah. Well, with Eliphas Levi, he for just magic's sake, rather than hermetics, for magic, which there is a crossover point, he labeled 3 core principles. Yeah. One was intent, one was the will, and one was correspondence, which
Mm-hmm.
you'll know that they correspond with the 7 hermetic principles. And the Golden Dawn, I think they introduced imagination to the 4 of them. But they are the key elements, and intent is just one of them. And that intention, all right, I've got a spell here. I intend to do that. Right? That means nothing. You know, it really, really means nothing.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the the magical schools or even traditions and teachings will always embrace that know thyself axiom like you're talking about. What are some of the things that you think we can do to start knowing ourselves, like knowing how we will react or what angers us or what triggers us?
I think the other thing that's really, really not dwelt upon now, right, is the core principles of, I think it was Agrippa, who initially said, you know, to know yourself and to have true understanding of yourself is to know the elements,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
He wasn't talking about the elements in the sort of physical sense. He was
Right.
talking about your will,
Yeah.
your emotions,
Which corresponds to elements. Yeah. Right.
yeah. And
Nice.
to master them and to balance them is to
Right.
become the focal point.
Right.
And to become that focal point is to become a rounded human being. And to become that rounded human being, you must incorporate. I do really hate it when people say, "Oh, I'm very watery. I'm just, you know, I just." No, don't accept that. Don't accept the fact that I'm very watery. Go and seek your fire. Go and seek your air. Go and seek your earth, because you need those to pull them all together to balance. And that is the way that your spirit grows, is to experiment, is to look and seek out these various elements of yourself. You know, they said, as above, so below.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, the universe is full of is bound by the elements, and so are you within. Yeah, it's
Right.
the same as male and female. Male and female, we're all male and female. Yeah, but we have to have that middle pillar, that balance in ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
but before we can actually and to actually have that balance makes magic and working magic so much easier as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you haven't, you know, you can focus, you have that focus. And meditation, I think, is very lapsed. And I think especially the Western style meditation, where you're using path workings and guided meditations to actually because that is your correspondences. Those meditations, those guided meditations, are your link to the correspondence that was so prevalent in sort of magic of the sort of hermetic tradition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we interviewed the witch queen of New York City. Her name is Lady Rhea, and one of the questions I asked her was, what we should be focusing on, and one of the things she said was, learn hermetics.
Yeah. I mean, craft. I think one of the other programs you were on Witchcraft TV was talking about the origins of craft, and people are talking about it being Masonic. Yes, there is very, very sort of the initiations are quite Masonic, but you look at the rest of the structure. See, I spent sort of the last sort of 15 years looking into the history of where all the little bits of craft come from, and majority of it you will find, I mean, Gardner's writing is taken from Crowley and Golden Dawn. Bits and bobs with the initiation that are taken from Masonic or Rosicrucian, and a big chunk of it, which people miss a lot of the time, especially the wording, is from the Key of Solomon. Sorry, I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Harold.
Somebody had made a comment in the chat room, and I'm going to read it. I want to point out that harm none is a Wiccan tenet. Not all magical paths adhere to that. For example, Brujeria simply asks, is it justified? Hoodoo, voodoo, granny magic, etc. also do not have such golden rule type reads. The craft isn't only Wiccan. And that's a big thing in the United States too. I see a lot too, is they say, well, I don't follow the read because I'm not Wiccan. That's said a lot.
That's fine. Yeah, I didn't say that. Witchcraft is diverse, very diverse.
Yes.
You know, I mean, I was talking about my own particularly path, which was Wiccan based. You know, and I think I made that quite clear. So, but yeah. I mean, there's so many paths, and there's so many sort of people that don't. I mean, even if you take the read out of things, right? People have a basic morality. They know they know what's right and they know what's wrong.
Good point.
You know, and I think
right.
If you don't know what's right and wrong, I think you're in trouble.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with that 100%. Even a Baptist preacher still has morals and values about them, right?
Yeah.
And so shouldn't pagan clergy or spiritual leaders within the pagan community. So, yeah, I agree with that 100%. What do you think would be a good advice for, I want to say, seekers seeking into or trying to hook up with initiatory training? What would be your advice to them?
I think you go. There's two Facebook pages. There's the Gardnerian Seekers and Initiates page, and there's another one. And if you look on Facebook and just type it in, it'll come up. And the Alexandrian Guard Seekers and Initiates page, right? Mm-hmm. And in the UK, I can't say for the US because I don't know the US that well, yeah. But I say for the UK, that is the place to go to. And I would say to any seeker, right, learn a system of magic. It doesn't matter. To me, I don't think it matters where that system comes from. And as long as that system works, I don't think it matters if it's traditional or hereditary, yeah. As long as it works, as long as it has logic behind it. This is the other thing that gets me sometimes, is that people will have practices or promote practices that have no logic behind them, yeah. And it's like, well, why are you doing that? And if you can't answer why are you doing something in that way, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Right. Question come up in the comments. When you leave an organization that you found out is not doing good, and when you leave, they attack you for leaving, how do you handle that?
Reflect it back. Always reflection. Yeah. Put up your barriers. Doesn't matter if you're being attacked or not, put up your barriers, rebound the magic. Yeah, there are some techniques that is for a personal one I use. I think I posted it somewhere. It, is the hardening of the aura technique, right? Which is a simple thing where you send a light out from your solar plexus, you build a bubble around yourself and make that bubble a reflective surface. So anything that comes your way is reflected back to them. You can do that on a grander scale. So you can do your house, you can do your car, you can do everything, and practice it and make sure so that you can do it like that and create this. Yeah. Basically, but I will say this, in my experience, right, the organizations that say they're going to do you no good and they're going to curse you or they're going to put a spell on you are the ones that usually don't have squat and don't have any power at all to actually do it, because usually they're the people that don't know what they're doing in the first place.
Right. Boasting. Lots
Boasting,
of boasting. No action,
bragging.
right.
So I always say, all right, go ahead. I've said it to a couple of people in the past. I said, well, and they've threatened to curse me. I said, all right, do your
Right.
worst. Do your worst.
Well,
I
I
don't
was talking about
because I don't think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, Harold.
Earlier in the conversation, we were talking about that, where you just said they told you that they were going to be doing curses and, smiting you. And I just feel like if they're telling you that
they've got, if they're telling you,
because they're breaking up their power. And you were talking about Levi, and when you're talking about Levi, the know, the will, the dare, to keep silent, and the keep silent portion of that, I just feel like that's part of it, right?
Yeah. If someone's got to tell you that they're going to work against you, they probably have not got the power to do it. Right. I've had people say, "Oh, I'm going to curse you. I'm going to do this to you. I'm going to do that." I had one guy on the phone to me years ago saying, "I'm going to throw everything I got at you," and I just said, "Well, go ahead. I don't care." I said, I don't believe that you've got the power to do it. So go ahead, and see what you get, because my barriers are up. My defenses are up. I always put defenses up around my house. I always put defenses up around everything that I work, as a standard practice. And I think everyone should do that. Everyone should get into doing that on a personal level and a level that's outside themselves. It's like creating a magic circle. Why do you create a magic circle? Yeah. If you're working magic, you create a circle. That circle is to contain and stop outside influences. So if you can do that with a magic circle, you could do it around yourself. You can do it around your car. You can do it around your house.
Right.
So my advice is, if someone's threatening you and they were dodgy in the first place, is to not pay them much attention and not worry about it. Because if they were really serious and they knew what they were doing, first of all, they wouldn't do it. And secondly, if they did do it, they wouldn't tell you.
Right. So here's a question coming from America, where America is kind of, in opinion, on the front lines of consumerist values, implementing witchcraft into like active body churches, where there's organizations of that nature. What would be your advice for, because it goes on in America where one organization will bully another? What is your advice for bullying within the scope of pagan community?
I would say the best thing, very best thing, is to ignore them.
That's what my wife says.
If anyone's bullying, right, that bully wants a reaction. Yeah. And if you refuse to react to it, I've got one at the moment. I've had one who I fell out with probably about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 or 4 years ago. I tell the truth. I'm a terrible person for telling the truth. So I upset quite a lot of people.
It's called keeping it real in
Not,
America.
not my problem. It's their problem. And there was one someone who well, they just disagreed. They accused me of all sorts, and they disagreed with what I said, what I did, and basically went off and had a wee hissy fit and threw all the toys out the pram, and basically there's every so often. I mean, I just like just like that, blank them, just ignore. And occasionally they'll write something and mention my name and stuff like that, but just ignore it, because the fact that when they mention your name and when you rise to that, that's what they want. They want you to rise to it. You know, I saw that really, really petty Chihuahua thing. Yeah. That, how old are they? Are they 12 years old?
Right.
You know, it's like kindergarten stuff. Really is. You know, and it's like but they must be, to actually react like that, they must be so threatened. Yeah. What are they scared of? That you're going to do a better job. Yeah. So take it as a compliment.
Yeah.
Rather than anything else, you know. Bullying is bullying, right? The best thing for it is to actually ignore it.
Great advice from Robin ap Clericus from the United Kingdom, giving an interesting perspective of witchcraft and pagan life on the grand scheme of things, man. Thanks so much for coming on the Lone Wolf Show, man. Witchcraft TV. Robin ap Clericus, everybody. Hope you come and join us again soon.
Yeah, will do. Right. Take care of yourself.